Hello and welcome to this video on umami, the secret flavor that the chefs don't want you to know about. No wait, that's the wrong thing, that's advertisements. Umami is often described as the secret fifth flavor, and that is often an accurate description. This is on top of sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. Umami is the name for this flavor and it's derived from Japanese, where the Japanese word basically means savory flavor. The taste is not necessarily unique to Japanese cuisine. It can be found in many foods, and those especially rich in the taste include soy sauce, dried tomatoes, yeast, parmesan, anchovies, miso, stock, mushrooms, Vegemite or Marmite, and more. To an extent, you could say it is the taste of MSG, as MSG is basically this just in a concentrated form. The flavor is really more how we perceive the taste, rather than a specific flavor compound itself, although there is a particular chemical responsible for it. In short, it's anything that can bind to a glutamate or nucleotide receptor in your mouth and nose. Particularly the glutamate receptors though, they're the important one. Glutamate is the element in monosodium glutamate that makes it so tasty. Monosodium glutamate is also known as MSG. It's also used as a replacement for umami sauces to give that extra punch to food. The reason we know that it's more a receptor role rather than a specific binding agent or antagonist to that receptor is due to various studies that have been done, and they've looked at various receptors. Things like the glutamate receptor 4 and receptor 1, these are all taste receptors, primarily in the mouth. They're found right over the tongue, not in a specific place, and this is true of all taste receptors. Weirdly though, these aren't just found in the mouth, they're also found in the duodenum. That makes some sense though. If the idea is to be able to absorb the particular amino acids, which glutamate is one of, you certainly want them in the duodenum, because that will tell the body, it's here, absorb it, and use it. Another possibility is that it can be activated by calcium, and this can trigger various receptors that are transient in that they come and go on a regular basis. This creates a sort of reaction, particularly talking here about cations, and that activates the neuron, and that then releases ATP. This is useful in the central nervous system, where glutamate does act as a neurotransmitter as well, so it has a lot of uses in the body, and may perhaps explain some of the reason why we are so sensitive to it. Glutamic acid itself is really the primary example though. This is what we're going to taste in most food, and it's what is in glutamate-rich foods. To get access to it though, you nearly always have to cook or process that food somehow. That's why things like soy sauce are heavily fermented to get that flavor. Without it, you're not going to have that there. What happens is that you get a breakdown of protein, and as protein breaks down, you release the amino acids, including the glutamate within it. Glutamate being made up of glutamic acid, which is one of the amino acids that make up all proteins, you can see how cooking would be essential. In other ways, you can look at it as being that savory flavor in meat as well. The curious thing is that it's not considered essential. It's actually classified as a non-essential nutrient for humans, and that's because the human body can synthesize enough to get by without ever having to consume it from an external source. The body has ways of synthesizing it. The fact that the body is sensitized to its availability may indicate that there is an advantage to be able to get it from an external source though. As far as the flavor of umami goes, and remembering that MSG is often used as a substitute for it when it's not available in enough sources of food, is generally considered safe, and this may be considered controversial. Some people will say that they are sensitive to MSG. The problem with these individuals is that, first of all, most symptoms are very mild and very transient, which means that identifying an exact cause and effect is very hard, something we've described before on MSG itself. The second reason though is that the amount you would need to consume to have the effects that would be described by these individuals is ridiculous, and frankly unlikely to ever be consumed in reality. Like other flavors though, it's worth pointing out that umami is only something that you enjoy within a relatively narrow range. Too much or too little, and you have issues. Too little and you may not notice it, too much and it just overwhelms everything. This flavor is something of a red herring as far as side effects go, but it's really just a combination of flavors that all come under the heading of glutamates. Realistically, you could just say it is the flavor of protein, and that is probably the most accurate description of it. The most accurate might be to say it's the flavor of amino acids, and specifically glutamic acid. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions below.